Welcome to our Ask Admission webinar. Thank you so much for joining. We are going to give it just a couple of moments to let folks funnel into the attendee session. So I will get us started in just a moment or so. Again, thank you for joining. I'm going to just give it a moment so that folks can join us. All right, I see people funneling in, so thank you all so much for joining. I will go ahead and slowly get started so that people don't miss too much if they're coming in. But welcome everyone. This is our Ask Admission webinar where we will be going through the application process, common questions we receive, application requirements, and I'm also joined by one of our awesome programs, the Scientific Computing program. So they will be presenting about some of the deeper dive aspects of their program. So we will go ahead and get started. A couple of housekeeping items I just want to quickly go through. So this is being recorded. You don't have to worry about taking notes or missing any information. This will be on our YouTube channel, hopefully within a week or two. And while you're on our YouTube channel, we have a lot of other webinars and informational sessions that might be helpful for you to check out while you're there. This is a Q&A session, so if you have any questions, please submit them in the Q&A feature. We will be answering them on the back end and also live, so please feel free throughout the entire session to send those questions to us. I am joined by a couple of awesome members of my team as well. You might not be seeing their face, but they are on the back end answering your questions. So I'm joined by both Claire Going, who's an enrollment engagement specialist, and Jess Wagner, who's the master's admission manager. So again, don't feel nervous to ask your questions. Please send them in and we will answer them either through the Q&A feature or live at the very end. I'd also like to introduce myself. My name is Abby Kalkstein. I am the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions. So I will be going through our presentation today and also hopefully answering some questions that you have. So I want to begin by talking about why Penn, why you might be interested in Penn. So we are the first university in the nation. We were founded by Ben Franklin in the 1700s, and then about 100 years later, Penn Engineering itself was founded in 1852 as a school specifically within the university. We are a large school. We have just over 26,000 students. The majority of those are graduate students. So we have 12 graduate schools across the university. Penn Engineering is, of course, one of those 12. And we have, within Penn Engineering, we have 15 master's programs, 6 PhD programs, and to serve all of those students, we have 19 research centers that really focus on areas like AI, engineering and healthcare, robotics, just as some examples. Because Penn is such a vast, large institution, students really get access to wonderful resources as students and also as alumni. So we have multiple libraries across campus for all of the academic sides of things, studying, writing papers, dissertations, all of that stuff. We have different centers for affinity groups, so if there's different groups that you want to be a part of, we likely have it at the university. We have multiple fitness centers, and of course, career services support for, as I said, students, current students, and after as an alumni. Penn is not just has a lot of students, but geographically we're quite a large institution. We have over 300 acres of space across and throughout the city of Philadelphia. And we are, of course, located in the city of Philadelphia, which is a really innovative and wonderful place to be. So Philadelphia has a lot of nicknames: the city of brotherly love, the birthplace of the nation, the city of firsts. So it's a really great, wonderful place to be. I am a little bit biased because I am from Philadelphia, so I have a lot of great things to say. But it's an old city filled with a lot of innovation. As I said, it's the city of firsts. So the first library was founded here, the first art museum, the first zoo, and of course the first computer, which is actually still housed at the School of Engineering at UPenn. So lots of firsts. It's the sixth largest city in the nation. So it's pretty large, it's very dense. But it is rich with history, with culture. There's always something to do in Philadelphia, no matter the season. So right now it is getting to be our colder months, but there's still a lot to do, even if it's cold or blustery. There's also a lot of educational opportunities. So there are a ton of schools within Philadelphia and also on the outskirts in the suburban areas of Philadelphia. So there's a lot of young people, there's a lot of people who are just starting in their career. So it's really turned into a wonderful place to learn and a place to really grow and set some roots down. It's also a city that has a relatively low cost of living, which is really great, especially compared to some of the other larger East Coast cities. Of course, New York and Washington, D.C., both of those are really close to Philadelphia. So New York is about a 2-hour drive north of Philadelphia, and then Washington, D.C. is about 2.5 hours south. So both really easy to get to, but Philadelphia is significantly more affordable to live than both of those cities. We also have a great public transportation system. So the University of Pennsylvania is located on the west side of the city of Philadelphia, but it's so easy to get around the city to explore, again, some of those really great opportunities of museums and historical things to do across the city. And for anyone who is interested in more of the outdoorsy side of things, yes, Philadelphia is a city, but it is also a hub of nature and exploration. So we have the largest urban park in the world, known as Fairmount Park. It is giant. It goes across the city and beyond the city as well. So if you're someone who's interested in biking, hiking, riding horses, just walking and being outside, we have a ton of great opportunities for you to do that as well. And Philadelphia has really, in the past decade or so, turned into this really great hub for life sciences, tech, manufacturing, different science centers. So again, it's really this growing city of innovation and tech industry. So this view right here is from the Schuylkill River, which is one of the two major rivers in the city of Philadelphia, and you get a beautiful view of our center city area. Alrighty, and so this is a list of our master's programs. Of course, as I said, today we're joined by our scientific computing program, but I just want to draw attention. We do have a couple of our programs have online options as well. So we have a MCIT program and a data science program that have online options. We also have a Master's of Science in Artificial Intelligence, which is fully online. So if you are interested in an online version of these programs, please check out our website to learn more about that. And then these, of course, are our 6 PhD programs. If you are interested in potentially pursuing a PhD program now or in the future, we have a lot of YouTube videos that go into more detail about our PhD programs that I would really suggest checking out. All right, and we, as I said, Penn is a large institution. Engineering is also a large school within Penn, so we have about 4,400 enrolled students at any given time, but we really try hard to make sure that our students can connect with one another, both within the School of Engineering and beyond. So on the top of this slide, you will see different groups and organizations that are really specific to the School of Engineering and graduate studies within the school. So we have different groups and affinity groups within the School of Engineering. We have advisory boards to ensure that doctoral students and master's students their voices are being heard with leadership. Our doctoral students also have a specific Slack channel for them to talk all things life and academics, dissertations, things like that. So there's a lot of opportunity to connect amongst students. We also have a specific Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and different groups within that office as well to support our students. And we have advisors through the graduate OAS staff that provide regular advising sessions, both in person and virtual. And those are throughout the entire semester. But if times for that don't work, they're always very open to meet with students at any time that does work best for students. And then on the bottom part of this screen, there's a couple of different groups that are more widespread across the university. So not just engineering, but again, there's a lot of resources for graduate students as a whole. So we have the Graduate and Professional Student Assembly, which is a group that's really specific to graduate students and making sure that graduate students, their voices and their concerns are being heard across the university. And that's across all 12 graduate schools. We also have a Graduate Student Center, which is a group and a building that is specific to graduate students. In fact, you must be a designated graduate student to even get into the building. So they have a lot of resources that are more specific to graduate students, such as helping write dissertations, writing academic papers, things like that. But they also do a lot of more fun activities, de-stress activities, especially we're getting into the time of finals over here right now. So there's a lot of different activities to make sure that you're able to balance your mental health and some of the lighter things about being a student with, of course, the challenges that can come with being a student and preparing for finals. Additionally, for our international students, we have the International Student and Scholar Services. So that is an office dedicated to international students. As an entering international student, you get a specific ISSS advisor, and they stay with you throughout your entire time at the university. So they assist you with anything visa-related, OTP, CPT, Social Security concerns or questions, and we work really closely with them to make sure that you coming to campus is a really smooth transition for you. And then I know that folks are really interested always in the graduate outcomes. And so this is just a quick snapshot of some of our graduate outcomes from our career services team. They create this document, this report, and it can be found on our website. I will share it in the chat in just a moment. But I want to just kind of go through the respondents of our most recent cycle, which would be graduates between August 2022 and May of 2023. So 92.6% of graduates from our recent class that were surveyed are either employed, they're enrolled in continuing education, they're volunteering, serving in the military, or they just were not looking for a job, which is a really great percentage of graduates. And then that was within 6 months of graduating from our programs. And then 39% of respondents did go into the technology field on a full-time basis, followed by the financial services sector. Again, I will put this link in the chat in just a moment, but just know that there is a report online that goes well into much more detail than I would ever be able to show on just one slide. And now I want to go through the application requirements. So these requirements are true for all applicants, and I just want to kind of go through piece by piece because they tend to generate a lot of questions. So as questions come up, please feel free to put those in the Q&A for my team to be answering. So the online application is now open, so please feel free. If you have not started an application, you can begin one. The online application asks a lot of questions about who you are, some demographic information, things like that, how we can contact you. And then in terms of the pieces of your application, the resume is a portion of the application, and generally we advise that you don't get too fancy with your resume. Sometimes we see if for folks who have kind of really fancy resumes with interesting formatting, sometimes that doesn't really translate into our application system and it can look a little bit strange. So it really is the best interest to keep that as simple as possible. And just making sure that you have the necessary information on your resume, and the information on your resume does match the information that you're putting into your application, especially around your academic background, so when you attended certain schools, and if you have a professional background, when you worked in different careers. Personal statement is a pretty big portion of the application, and really here the main thing that we ask is that you do answer every question that we ask in the personal statement. Some of your answers to questions might be longer than others, which is absolutely fine, but please do know that we ask those questions on purpose, so we do really want you to answer them. Letters of recommendation are kind of a tricky part of the application because it's part of the only piece of things that you don't have a lot of control over. So when it comes to letters of recommendation, my advice is to really begin having those conversations early with potential recommendation writers. So make sure that you're talking to them well before the deadline of the program that you wish to apply, and make sure that they're open to writing favorable and positive letters of recommendation on your behalf. So one of those letters does have to be academic in nature, someone who has taught you, someone who you had hopefully a good relationship within that course. And then we do advise that one be professional in nature. If that's accessible to you, it might not be. And we require 2 letters, but there is space for 3 letters. So if you want to use a third recommendation, you certainly can as well. Please know that most importantly for letters of recommendation, those have to be in by the deadline. So that can be really tricky because you don't have a whole lot of control of when people are writing your letters of recommendation. So make sure that you are very clear with folks about when that deadline is. The application fee is required in order for you to be reviewed and considered for admission. It is $90, and we expect that to be paid by the deadline as well. We do not offer fee waivers for that application fee. Transcripts are often somewhat tricky, so we require unofficial transcripts for the admission process. So that is true of both domestic and international schools. They should be unofficial, but they should have your name, the school's name, and of course the grades that you received. So it should be clear to us what the school is that this transcript is for. If you are outside, if your school is outside of the United States, the transcript does have to be in English. So if it is not in English, please know that we do expect you to have this translated. If you would like to use a NACCE's accredited evaluation and translation service, we encourage that, but it does have to be in English, and that does have to also be received by the deadline. English proficiency scores are definitely an area where we get a lot of questions, so I'll go into a little bit of that in just a moment. But before we move on, I want to just address that the GRE scores are optional, so you don't have to send them, but they can definitely be very helpful if you performed well in the GRE. Just know that if you do want to submit the GRE, it does have to be official and it has to be valid. So it has to be within the past 5 years, 5 years of when you're submitting your application and sending your scores. So just know that if it's coming up to 5 years, please submit your application and request those scores so that they can link to your application before they become invalid. And one last thing I also want to address is that when you submit your application, there is a checklist that you can continue reviewing throughout the entire admission review process. So when you submit your application, you have access to this checklist. It will show you green check marks if you have all of the items that we need for admission, and it will have red X marks if we are missing an item. So please make sure that you are monitoring your checklist. You will be getting emails from our office if your application is incomplete, but please know at the end of the day, it is really up to you to make sure that all of those materials are submitted on your behalf. So monitor that checklist. Email us if you have any questions about, things you're seeing on the checklist. If things are waived, you will also see a gray check mark, and gray is good. So really you just want to be monitoring anything that has a red X mark. So for folks who are non-US citizens and whose first language is not English, you are expected to submit an English proficiency score. So we accept the TOEFL, the IELTS, or the Duolingo. Please know we do not have a preference. It's completely up to you and what is more accessible to you. We also accept the home versions of these tests. So for folks who are able to take them at home rather than a test center, we do accept those. If you're sending test scores, they do have to be official and they have to be valid. So valid for English proficiency scores means within the past 2 years. Again, official means they have to come from the test center themselves. So just know that in the admission process and the application review process, we do notice that sometimes the test scores do not always link, especially if the name on your application is not the same name that you took the test under. So if you included a middle name for the test and not in your application, that might cause an issue in linking the scores. That's not a big deal. We can definitely get those scores, but please know that the scores have to be submitted and received by the deadline. So if there's a chance that that might happen to you, please give yourself extra days to submit your application so that our team can really troubleshoot any test score concerns within plenty of time for that deadline. However, we do also offer automatic waivers under certain circumstances. So they are processed immediately after you apply and hit submit, and you will receive the waiver with these following criteria. So if you have already or you will graduate from a program in the United States or from a school in a country where English is the official language, or from a school where the medium of instruction is in English, but if that is the case, that should be clearly indicated on your transcript. So if you meet any of those criteria, your requirements will be automatically waived after you hit submit. So here are some important dates and deadlines. So for the PhD application, the deadline is December 16th, and for the master's deadline, it is February 3rd. Please know that the time for both of those deadlines is 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on both of those days. I want to really push and encourage folks that A, if you haven't started an application, you can go ahead and start one now, but B, all materials must be submitted with your application by that deadline, and they also have to be received. So especially around letters of recommendation and test scores, those do have to be in by the deadline. And please know, again, if there's potential for an issue with test scores or anything else, we really encourage you to not wait until the deadline. Just best practice. You never know what could happen when your internet suddenly goes out. So we really suggest trying to submit your application as soon as you're comfortable and have a strong application. You don't have to wait till the deadline. We don't encourage you to wait till the deadline. You also don't have to wait for your recommendation letters to be submitted to submit your application. You can submit your application and then continue to monitor your recommendation writers after you submit your application through that checklist that I mentioned earlier. So please, if your application is complete, please feel free to submit it. You do not have to wait until the final deadline. And then all decisions are released by early April. So we have a couple of upcoming events if some of your questions do not get answered in this session. I'm hopeful that they will, but we have a couple more events coming up before the deadlines. So we have a January 8th webinar similar to this, so we'll go through a lot of the same questions. Similar, we'll have a Q&A. And then we also offer coffee chats, which are a little bit more casual than our webinars. We encourage attendees to come on camera and come off mute to ask any questions that they have. With these, we have breakout sessions for each program that we have in attendance. So if you're interested in any of the following programs, we are also joined by our scientific computing program for our next coffee chat. You can join any of those and you'll have an opportunity to chat with admission folks as well as program staff. And lastly, I want to just put up this information. We have on our website a really great FAQ that kind of goes through a lot of what I just talked about, but you can always refer back to it if you have questions in the future. But you can check out our FAQs. You can always request more information to get on our emails and our communication. And then if you want to sign up for any of the additional events I just went through, that last QR code has all of those listed. So you can join us for any of those sessions and different program offerings. And then just at the bottom of this, you will see our email address. So if you have any questions throughout the application process, please don't hesitate to reach out. You're more than welcome to reach out, and we will get back to you as soon as we are able to address any questions or concerns that you might have. So lastly, I just want to say, please feel free to continue putting questions in the chat. And now I will pass it along over to the scientific computing program.
Okay, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone anybody might be in. So my name is Talid Sinno, and I'm a faculty member in the Department of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering. I also have a secondary appointment in the Department of Mechanical Engineering and Applied Mechanics. And I'm also the director for the SCMP program that we'll tell you a little bit about today. So let me first introduce the program through the people. And so I'm on the left, and the other two relevant people that I'll introduce, one of whom is here. So the first is Professor Alexandra Vojvodek, who's the director of PICS, and I will explain the relationship between PICS and SCMP. So PICS is the Penn Institute for Computational Science. It's a suite of about 10 faculty members from different departments, all of whom are involved in some form of computational science on campus, all from the School of Engineering, but from different departments: chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, materials, etc. And then the program is very wonderfully supported by our fantastic program coordinator, Delaney Parks, who's also here. Delaney, hello.
Hi, guys.
So Delaney is responsible for all the gears of the program, in the sense of handling a lot of questions, sudden issues, paperwork, etc., and guiding students towards all the complexities of navigating the very large, complex organization of both the School of Engineering and Penn at large. So between the three of us, we give you kind of a broad view or a wide range of access points to the university. So, okay, so let me tell you specifically about SCMP, and I want to make sure I leave time for questions, so I'm not going to really go into a lot of details. But so SCMP is a program that is very broadly focused on scientific computing as applied to natural science and engineering. Okay, and I'll tell you a little bit more of what I mean by that in just a moment. And so the idea here is to learn tools and ideas related to data science, related to machine learning, and related to scientific computing to solve problems in physics, in chemistry, in biology, in mechanical engineering, in materials engineering, chemical engineering, electrical engineering, and so on. Okay, and so, and I think the most important piece of information I can give you today is kind of how this program interfaces or how it's distinct from the DATS program also on campus. And so, although both programs involve courses in data science and in AI and machine learning in various forms, the scientific computing program, which is much more of a niche program in the sense that it's specifically targeted at applications in natural science and engineering. That's not to say that someone who's interested in going to work in an industry outside of that domain is not welcome in the program, but we do require coursework, very broadly speaking, within that umbrella. And so that kind of dictates the kind of students that typically show up in SCMP. And so just to kind of give you a sense of that, this is kind of the distribution of where our typical SCMP student comes from. And so what you'll see on here is that the majority of students come from either engineering or natural science backgrounds, but a full quarter of students also come from computer science. And in general, what we're looking for when students apply from a computer science background is a demonstrated interest in applications in natural science and engineering. And this could be anything from computer animation to image processing in medical applications to biostatistics so as long as there's a component in which the application is related to natural science and engineering, this falls within the domain of SCMP. Okay, so to give you an idea of what is not within the scope, just for reference, would be if you're really interested, for example, in applying AI to economics, for example, that is generally not within the scope. If you're interested in applying it to market research, that is generally not in the scope. But if, like I said, if you're interested in looking at computer animation and image processing from the perspective of medical applications, that is very much in the scope. And so it's really a bit of a judgment call at this interface, but we like it that way because it makes for a very diverse student body. And this diversity is really reflected in kind of where our students end up. And so you'll see that just because we want to train you a certain way, companies recognize that your talents are transferable. And so students graduating with an SCMP degree end up in a whole range of different environments. I'll say in a not insignificant fraction go on to PhD programs all over the country and beyond. We also have a lot of students that end up working in companies that aren't principally in the natural science and engineering business, but may either have divisions that are focused on this or may just be recruiting you for your problem-solving skills. Okay, so that's a very common thing across many disciplines. Companies are incredibly good at recognizing talent, no matter what your specific training might be in. That said, our real long-term vision is to bring the world of data science and AI towards solving problems within the engineering and natural science horizon. So I'll really just give you a couple more specific things just to make this a little bit more concrete in terms of what kind of program structure we have. Okay, and I think hopefully this will give you a better idea of what the requirements are and the kinds of courses that we require you to take. So the idea here is, because of our diverse student body backgrounds, we like to keep things as flexible as possible while still keeping structure to the program. And like the vast majority of master's programs in the School of Engineering, we require 10 courses. And 2 of these courses are in computational mathematics. That's the foundation for a lot of science and engineering, as well as machine learning and data science. And then we require that you take a total of 3 courses in ML and data science. And this is a very dynamic category of courses, as many of you know. So our offerings university-wide in this arena is constantly evolving and growing. And so a lot of these courses are now really sitting at the intersection between physics-based modeling and machine learning and image processing and things like that. So this is and we require 3 courses in this so that you get to sample all these different facets of data science and machine learning. The things that are really unique, I would say, to SCMP versus a lot of other ML and or data science programs is that we require, in addition, that you take 2 methods and simulation courses that are methods and simulations for natural science and engineering. So these would be, an example would be a molecular simulation course or a finite element course if you're doing continuum mechanics, or a course in optimization, for example. So this is, again, very broad, but the courses in this category are intended to be courses in which you learn tools or further your expertise in tools related. This is how we study these problems computationally. And then finally, there's 2 courses in applications. And again, this is meant for you to kind of construct your own storyline as to what this degree represents for you as an individual. And it's supposed to kind of put a stamp as to what that story is. So for example, if you're interested in doing bioimaging, you would take application courses related to medical imaging. And, just as an example, Penn has a huge medical science infrastructure right on campus. We take extensive advantage of that as both as faculty researchers and encouraging students to seek out opportunities within that domain. We also have a lot of efforts in, let's say, soft matter, in polymer studies, in colloidal science. So any courses related to the physics or the chemistry or biology of these things would qualify as applications courses. And then there's a free elective that we can talk about some other time. This is a course that allows you to just further enhance your interests or cater to your interests in whatever domain, whether it's a math course or an additional machine learning course or additional simulation courses, additional application courses. It's up to you. So one kind of just a mechanism that's also somewhat unique to the program is this is I'm going to show you one slide, and I'm only showing this so that you get an idea of how this works, not for you to follow this. We have a constantly evolving list of courses that have been approved for each of these different buckets. And the idea here is, rather than have a static list and say, pick one of these courses, we have an established list that's been vetted. And I'll explain what that process is in just a minute. And then at any point, if any student within the program finds a course that they'd like to take that's not on this list, there's a process by which you put forth that course. I will discuss it with you, and we'll reach out to whoever else, whatever other faculty member is involved in terms of expertise. And then we'll make a decision on whether that course is to be added to this list. If it's added to the list, then it's added for everybody going forward from that point. So this is a continuously growing list. Occasionally, courses are discontinued for a number of reasons, and then we'll remove those from the list. But in general, this is an ever-expanding list as disciplines evolve, as new courses are added, as new faculty arrive, as PICS grows, etc. And so this is an opportunity for you to also shape the kind of the future of the program. It incrementally evolves as students bring course proposals to this list. So that's really the major kind of features of this. Again, just to reiterate, as opposed to most data science programs, our emphasis really is on this select application niche, which is natural science and engineering. There's a lot of growing opportunities in bringing data science and ML and AI to these fields. They're relatively underserved compared to the more established domains. But this is also a very exciting opportunity for you to make a mark as companies scramble to kind of take advantage of these emerging tools in these disciplines. So it's both kind of a frontier and an opportunity. I'll just essentially piggyback on what Abby was saying earlier about the many opportunities. So SCMP is a relatively small program. Maybe Delaney can chime in with a better number if I'm way off, but I will say we typically have about 15 to 20 students per year. Some
That's
of these,
true, yeah.
okay, thank you. So some of these students are actually Penn undergrads who then decide to do a master's degree as well. The majority of students come from the rest of the world. And so it's a small program with students whose degrees are in various different disciplines. So in a sense, that kind of creates an opportunity also for bringing together or meeting students from very different backgrounds. So the PIC suite is a physically located floor in one of the engineering buildings. And there's space for community organization in terms of having students get together, studying together. So Delaney's organized events. So one of these, so we have a very, very nice, large conference room with wonderful views. And we have a kind of a studies and social hangout there on Mondays. There are also SCMP organized activities, and we're always on the lookout for ideas. And so students have suggested various things. We're always up for acting on those suggestions. And so, you know, it's like I said, it's both a challenge to kind of foster community from students with very different backgrounds, both in terms of where they grew up and what they studied, but at the same time, there's definitely an umbrella for bringing everybody together. And there's one other thing that I didn't mention that I should have mentioned, and I'll close with this. If we go back to this, so these two applications courses, we encourage but don't require that students also consider doing research. And so this is a very big feature of the program. A lot of students seek out research opportunities in the form of independent studies with faculty. There's no real formal process for this. Students generally just contact professors, ask if they have an opportunity for someone to pursue a semester-long or a year-long research project in their labs. And there's a specific course number you can sign up for that you can then use that research experience as an application course. And this is something, as I said, a lot of students do, particularly with quite a few of the PICS faculty members. And so in the past, I've jointly mentored some SCMP students with other PICS faculty members to pursue these kinds of opportunities. And so this is something, again, you don't have to do this with faculty members that are part of PICS. A lot of students do research independent studies with faculty in the medical school, and sometimes even in the dental school, and a very broad range of applications. So I'll leave it there and open the floor for questions, and there we go. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Talid. That was so helpful. And I know we've got a couple of questions that came in previously before we even started this session. So while folks are thinking of new questions to ask, I'll go ahead and get started with a couple of those pre-submitted questions, if that's okay. All right, so one of the questions is kind of related to actually where you just left off in terms of research. I'm curious, and so are some prospective applicants, what kinds of research have recently scientific computing students done?
So off the top of my head, I don't have an immediate specific example, but I'll give you some recent past examples. We've had students work in a group with that does bioimaging and using AI to do segmentation of those images. And that's actually something I personally am involved in indirectly. I've co-mentored a master's student with another one of our faculty members, Professor Paris Perdikaris, who's a machine learning person. And that project was, just to give you an example, because obviously I know more about it since I was involved, we were interested in using electron microscopy images of clots formed in mice. And then we take those images, and we had a joint student who was responsible for training neural networks to be able to identify cell boundaries. And then we would take those segmented images and run the kinds of simulations my group works on, Monte Carlo simulations, to look at how things react and diffuse inside those plots. Okay, so that's an example. But we've had students also even do independent studies outside the university, working at companies, working on a research problem there. We had a recent student, actually a current student, about to graduate, work on designing, doing fluid mechanics on airfoils fluid foils for boats. Very much a mechanical engineering application, took place entirely at a company. And so even that works. So it really is very, very broad. Actually, I just signed off on an independent study for someone to do an independent study at another company, working on semiconductor type applications. Very wide range of opportunities. So all you have to do is, if you come across something that sounds interesting, figuratively knock on the door these days, send an email and contact the faculty member. You'll find the vast majority of faculty members at Penn as a whole are very receptive to having a master's student come in and say, I'm interested in your work. Can I do something in the lab? And that's how the majority of projects get started.
Awesome. Yeah, we always get a lot of prospective students who are interested in potential research opportunities and things like that. So I know that's a good answer for a lot of those folks. Um, and then kind of pivoting back a little bit, but what advice would you give to prospective students to help them succeed in the program?
Um, I, there's no there's no magic answer for this. I think really let me answer this with a specific thing for SCMP, which is um, think deeply about what it is that you want out of the program. Okay, so as I said, our primary audience, at least from the program perspective, is for students who, let's say, have a degree in chemical engineering or mechanical engineering or material science, and who want to learn more about using computational tools to study problems in those fields. Okay, so that's really the traditional, there's such a thing, um, student for SCMP. So it is not only a data science program. Okay, so while the emphasis is on learning those, how to apply those tools in these fields, we don't want to completely separate those things. And that's and it took a lot of back and forth over the years for us to kind of strike a balance between those two things. So we want you to make that connection. And so when you build your story as a student in the program, you want to say, I'm someone who's got proficiency in these modern tools applied to this kind of discipline. And so having that kind of an idea as you're applying to the program and before you even come to the program, I think is a definite recipe for success. I would just caution, the flip side of this. It's fine if you don't have a good idea of exactly what application you want to apply your toolkit to. That said, if you know you want to do something that is clearly outside the scope of the program, it's not a good fit. You'd be better off applying to a broader based, just general data science program that does not focus on these kinds of applications.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Great. And then you went into this a little bit, but what other support services do students have access to, especially around academic advising, career counseling, or mentorship opportunities for current scientific computing students?
Okay, so as far as advising is concerned, so we have a small enough program that at least the very basic aspects of advising in terms of coursework, picking your discipline, your setting, your story. Um, I'm the principal advisor for the program. That said, I don't hesitate if you come in and say, I'm really interested in the kind of work, let's say, Professor X does. I'll refer you to them. Especially if they're one of the PICS faculty, I will just send you over to them with an introduction so that they know who they're talking to and why. And most faculty in PICS certainly are more than happy to serve as an advisor for a student who's got a specific interest in their domain of expertise. So Delaney is also very actively involved in advising students on a whole number of things. And as I said, Penn is a very big, diverse, complex organization, and at the very least, Delaney is able to point you in the right direction. And whatever she can't figure out or I can't figure out, we reach out to people who can and point you in the right direction. So as far as kind of networking opportunities within the program, so we've got PIC specific and SCMP specific Slack channels. Or a lot of these modalities, Delaney can pipe in and add to this. But we really, I think the most valuable source of information tends to be word of mouth that's transmitted across students, between students. In terms of career advice, things like that, again, a lot of times faculty members will have some pointers on this. There's the broader engineering school and university-wide career offices that help point students in the right directions. And we have a growing base of former students who keep in touch with the program, who also will give us pointers to opportunities that are open at their this is not SCMP specific, but you'd be amazed how alumni of various programs, how motivated they are to come back and seek Penn students and Penn graduates for future positions, knowing exactly what they're getting. Okay, so it's kind of a pre-vetted source of talent, if you will. So those are all opportunities for students.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's definitely the one of the beauties of Penn is the alumni opportunities and alumni circles there. So well, I want to thank you, Talid and Delaney, as well, so much for joining us today. We are out of time. So thank you so much for going through the program and answering some of these questions. I know we had a lot of people interested in specifically research and different opportunities in that realm. So I hope that we were able to answer everyone's questions. Again, if you have any further questions that were not answered, feel free to reach out to the program specifically for any program specific questions or to our graduate admissions email if you have any application questions. Otherwise, we look forward to reviewing your applications, hopefully earlier than February 3rd.
Definitely.
Thank you all so much.
Okay.